What if the world you see isn't the world at all? Not a metaphor, not a thought experiment, but a quiet rupture in the mirror of reality, one that's been there your whole life, waiting for you to notice. For centuries, a sacred truth has been buried beneath distractions, not hidden by force but slowly smudged by noise until you no longer heard it calling. It wasn't lost, it was veiled, and yet some part of you never forgot. A whisper, a tension in the silence, a pattern you couldn't explain. That part of you brought you here, not by chance but by resonance. Because you didn't stumble onto this video, you arrived. This isn't just content, it's a frequency, a reactivation. What you're about to hear is not just information, it's remembrance. A signal designed not to convince your mind but to awaken your soul. Somewhere beneath logic, beneath identity, beneath time itself, you already know what's coming. This is a return, not a lesson, so take a deep breath. Let go of what you think you know, and open the doorway within. The journey begins now. Let's begin with a quiet confrontation. What if the world you wake up to each morning isn't as solid as it seems? What if the job, the bills, the relationships, the mirror are all reflections, not causes, not metaphors, not wishful thinking, but actual echoes, frequencies bouncing back to you from the vibration you've been broadcasting? This isn't a spiritual slogan, it's a law. The first Hermetic Principle in the Kybalion tells us, all is mind, the universe is mental. But most people read that like a fortune cookie, not realizing it's describing a field of influence more real than gravity. The world isn't outside in, it's inside out. Your mind doesn't react to reality, it creates it. If that sounds extreme, good. Because only a radical shift can break the trance of powerlessness most people live under. We've been taught that change comes from doing more, pushing harder, fixing circumstances. But what if every visible thing is simply a fossilized frequency, an echo of thoughts and emotions long gone, now hardened into people, events, and outcomes? That means you're never really responding to life. You're responding to your own signal returned. Every result you're living now, every conversation, missed chance, breakthrough, loss, didn't start today. It started as a silent emission from your consciousness. Long before words or choices, you were already tuning the dial. The question is, are you aware of the station you're on? Most aren't. They wake up anxious, scroll through fear, react from fatigue, and wonder why the day feels like déjà vu, not realizing they're locked into the same frequency loop, and the universe, ever faithful, keeps mirroring it back, again and again. But here's the sacred truth, and it's not loud. It whispers. You are not the signal, you are the source. And the way to change your outer world is not to scream louder, run faster, or hustle harder. It is to tune inward, to remember what kind of music your soul came here to broadcast, to choose the emotion that leads your day before the world chooses it for you. This isn't about positive thinking. This is energetic hygiene. You don't fake a frequency, you become it. Start by watching your thoughts, not to judge them, but to listen for the station they're on. Are they playing the sound of fear, lack, proving something? Or are they soft but steady, humming with calm certainty? That subtle difference is everything. Then shift from listener to transmitter. Decide your frequency the way a radio host cues a song. Set the tone of your inner world like it matters, because it does. Most people think they're lost. They're not. They're just mismatched. Broadcasting one signal and expecting a different echo. You don't need to chase the life you want. You need to broadcast the version of you that would naturally live it. The rest is magnetism. And as the Kybalion hints, reality doesn't happen to you. It radiates from you. So the real power isn't in controlling outcomes. It's in becoming the vibration that makes them inevitable. You don't speak it. You don't even think it out loud. But you're broadcasting constantly. Not through your voice, but through your vibration, your field. Every sigh, every pause, every choice you make when no one's watching is a signal. The universe doesn't hear your words, it hears your frequency. This is the second Hermetic law, the principle of vibration. It doesn't ask whether you believe in it. Like gravity, it just works. Everything moves, everything vibrates. And every emotional state, grief, awe, bitterness, devotion, has a frequency as real as any radio wave. But here, where most people slip. They try to fake a better vibration. They put on a smile, light a candle, chant a mantra, but inside their field is screaming doubt. And the universe, being exquisitely honest, doesn't respond to performance. It responds to resonance. That's why trying to think positive while swimming in buried fear feels exhausting. You're not aligned, you're acting, and your reality will mirror not what you say, but what you are. True vibration isn't crafted, it's remembered. It's a return to a state you already know, not something you manufacture. Like tuning into a radio station that's always been playing. You just forgot which dial it's on. So how do you know what you're actually vibrating? Look around. Reality will always show you the moods of people around you, the kinds of conversations you attract, the repeating patterns in your life. They're not just coincidences, they're echoes, feedback loops, mirrors. Especially pay attention to synchronicities, those eerie alignments of timing, symbols, or signs. Most brush them off, but they are among the purest indicators of your current frequency. They don't come from logic, they come from alignment. And here's a subtle shift that will change your life. Instead of trying to control outcomes, try listening to your field. Try asking, what am I transmitting right now? In the middle of a conversation, a scroll session, a choice, you'll begin to see how your reality isn't something happening to you. It's something harmonizing with you. The truth is, you can't outwork your vibration. You can't outrun your frequency. You can only realign it. And that realignment begins the moment you stop pretending to feel good and start cultivating what actually feels true. There's no shame in being off tune. Every instrument needs tuning. The power lies in recognizing the music you've been unconsciously playing and daring to change the song. Because the universe doesn't need your performance. It's already waiting to dance to your authenticity. Most people think change means struggle. They picture themselves climbing out of darkness, clawing their way toward the light. But what if transformation isn't a battle? It's a pivot. The Kybalion's third principle is polarity. It teaches that every truth has its twin, every feeling its counterpart. There is no joy without grief, no trust without doubt, no courage without fear. But the power lies in knowing that each of these opposites isn't a separate entity. They're just different degrees on the same line. Light and darkness aren't enemies. Darkness is simply light not yet revealed. Hate is love that's been wounded. Doubt is trust in disguise asking to be tested. So when you're in a low frequency, anxious, bitter, numb, you don't have to erase that state. You don't need to shame yourself for being negative. You simply turn toward its opposite. You reach across the spectrum and slide, not leap. You don't have to feel whole to begin healing. You just have to be willing to tilt. Let's say you're overwhelmed. The opposite isn't perfect calm. It's one breath of clarity. Take it. That breath is a signal, and energy moves toward signal. This is why the principle of polarity is so potent. It reminds you that no state is permanent. Emotion is fluid. And with awareness, you can redirect your current without fighting the tide. Start by using your emotional pain as a compass. Don't run from it. Don't fix it. Just notice. Where on the spectrum am I? That question alone puts you in motion. Then act, not react. Choose one gesture, one word, one posture that belongs to the frequency you wish to inhabit. That action, though small, breaks inertia. It sends a ripple to the universe. I'm shifting. Most people wait to feel different before they act different. But that's the slow road. The true shift happens when you behave as if, not to fake it, but to faithfully initiate the opposite current. When sadness comes, speak to it softly, not to silence it, but to remind yourself you have access to joy. When fear arises, step 1 inch toward courage, not to banish fear, but to rebalance the polarity. This isn't spiritual bypassing, it's energetic artistry. You're not suppressing the dark, you're illuminating it. And that's the secret. You don't fight your shadow to find the light. You angle toward it. One honest, deliberate move at a time. Because polarity doesn't demand perfection. It offers direction. We speak about mind like it's a single thing. But the mind isn't a room, it's a cathedral. With hidden chambers, spiral staircases, echoing vaults that few ever explore. Most people live on the ground floor. They decorate it with affirmations, sweep it with routines, maybe even light some incense. But above them, and beneath them, lie entire worlds of consciousness untouched. The Kybalion teaches that the universe is mental. But it doesn't stop there. It speaks of planes, layers within consciousness that vibrate at different frequencies. There is the instinctive mind, the emotional mind, the rational, the intuitive, the spiritual. Each with its own rules, its own rhythm. And here's the trap. Many seekers understand the teachings intellectually. They read the Kybalion, quote its laws, even explain it to others. But their lives don't change. Why? Because they're still operating from the intellectual plane. Logic alone doesn't shift energy. Knowing isn't transforming. You can memorize every law of the universe and still live in the same loop if your being hasn't moved. To shift your reality, you have to shift your plane. So how do you do that? You begin by recognizing where you usually reside. Are you mostly in thought, emotion, instinct? There's no judgment, only awareness. Because once you know your default frequency, you can begin to explore higher bands. Meditation is not just about silence. It's a ladder between planes. It softens the grip of lower patterns and invites in the voice that doesn't shout, the one that whispers from the higher mind. Dream journaling is another portal. Dreams don't come from your logical mind. They come from the deep archives, the intuitive and symbolic planes. When you start capturing them, you build a bridge to those layers. And once that bridge is open, insights flow not as thoughts but as knowings. And then there's recognition, moments where something pierces through your usual field, like a phrase you've never heard but feel you've always known. That's the higher mind speaking, not loud but unmistakable. Your job isn't to force yourself into a higher state, it's to tune for it, to make your body and mind a vessel quiet enough to receive it. Like adjusting the dial on an old radio, not to create the music but to finally hear it. Because here's the truth, your higher mind has always been broadcasting. It never stopped. You just weren't on the right frequency to receive it. So don't chase change. Rise gently, rise inwardly, and the plane will meet you. There's a loneliness that runs deeper than being alone. It's the feeling that your thoughts echo into nothing, that your questions dissolve into space, that no one, human or divine, is listening. But this ache isn't proof of separation. It's a calling, a homing signal, because you're not speaking into silence. You're speaking into a field that knows you from the inside out. The Kybalion calls it the universal mind, not a God above, but a mind through which all things move. Not a personality, not a judge, but a consciousness, alive, aware, and intimately connected to your every vibration. You were never disconnected, only distracted. When synchronicities brush your life, numbers repeating, strangers saying the very thing you needed to hear, obstacles parting just in time, that's not randomness. That's alignment. That's the universal mind responding in the only language it speaks, reflection. Creative downloads that hit like lightning, sudden clarity mid-walk. A sense that something unseen just clicked. Those are not accidents. They are echoes returning to sender. The field is always talking, but it never shouts. So how do you hear it? Not by begging, not by scripting, but by stilling. Stillness is not inactivity. It's presence without push. It's what happens when the mind stops scrambling to fix and starts opening to feel. Not your mood, but your signal. Begin by creating a space, physical or internal, where you let yourself ask without demanding answers. Let the question rise, then release it like smoke. Trust that if your frequency is sincere, the field will arrange a reply. It may come as a whisper, a headline, a stranger's offhand comment. The shape doesn't matter. The recognition does. The universal mind doesn't use language the way we do. It speaks through symbols. It answers in patterns. It teaches through resonance. And when you're attuned, even the mundane starts to glow. This isn't fantasy. It's perception at a finer grain. You are not broadcasting into a void. You are swimming in a sea of sentience. You are heard not because you're special, but because you are. The field doesn't judge your worth, it reflects your wave. So pause, ask from the soul, and then don't wait. Live the answer, as if it's already in motion, because most times it already is. Ideas are beautiful, but transformation begins when breath meets structure, when vision becomes rhythm. So if you followed this far, not just with your mind but with your being, this is where it all meets the ground. 5 steps. not for discipline but for resonance. A living ritual to remind your body, your thoughts, your presence, what it came here to emit. 1. Clear the old field. Frequency thrives in clarity. Before you broadcast a new vibration, cleanse the static of the old. This doesn't mean perfection. It means discernment. Notice what songs you're hearing each morning, what words you let live in your space, what objects you keep that no longer resonate with who you're becoming. Every sound, scent, and shape around you contributes to your field. Purify not with fear, but with reverence. Release with grace. Then turn inward. Observe the thoughts on loop. Are they yours, or are they echoes inherited from fear, memory, media? Silence isn't emptiness, it's alignment. 2. Choose a root emotion for the day. Each morning, before the noise begins, choose one feeling that will be your anchor frequency. Not a goal, a state. Love, trust, serenity, focus. It doesn't matter which, what matters is intentionality. Write it, speak it. Let your body feel the texture of that emotion, not as fantasy but as current. You are not hoping to feel it later. You are becoming it now. 3. Embody the signal. Once you've chosen your anchor, live from it, not perform it, embody it. How would this emotion walk, speak? Look into someone's eyes, eat, work. It's not about pretending. It's about attuning your micro movements to the field you've chosen. Let every gesture be a prayer without words. Remember, energy doesn't lie. Your field speaks louder than any sentence you could say. 4. Track synchronicities like compass points. When your signal shifts, the universe replies, always. But the replies are subtle. A repeated symbol, a line in a song, someone saying what you just thought. These aren't weird coincidences. They are the language of alignment. Keep track. Write them down. Notice what increases when you hold your frequency and what vanishes. These synchronicities are not rewards. They are reflections. 5. Review every 7 days. Every 7 days, pause, reflect. Don't evaluate by external outcomes. Ask, did I hold my chosen state more often than not? What tried to pull me out of it? What signs emerged? What did I learn about my own signal? Then refine. Adjust your frequency like a sound engineer fine-tunes a song. Not with judgment, but with mastery. Because mastery is not perfection, it's presence. These 5 steps aren't magic. They're mirrors. They reveal what you're truly radiating and give you the tools to shift it. You won't need to chase transformation. You'll become the kind of field that attracts it naturally. Because the truth is, frequency isn't something you wait for. It's something you remember how to be. If you've made it here, let this be your turning point. You don't need more tools. You don't need to fix yourself. What you need is to remember the vibration you came here to hold, the presence you used to carry before the world asked you to forget. Everything you've ever searched for, clarity, peace, power, connection, isn't missing. It's masked, covered by layers of noise, expectation, fear. Peel those back gently, not with force, but with curiosity. Try this. For the next 7 days, choose one state of being. Not a task, a frequency. Maybe it's stillness, maybe joy, maybe truth. Then live as if it were your native tongue. Watch how people respond, how events shift, how timing becomes liquid. Not because you're controlling anything, but because you're cohering with something deeper. Because the field doesn't bend to manipulation, It synchronizes with sincerity. And when that week ends, don't stop. Don't cling. Just notice. What changed inside? What became effortless? What began to echo back? That noticing is sacred. And if this practice stirred something in you, if you felt the field begin to hum, if your world started to ripple, then you're ready for the next gate. Rhythm, the Hermetic law that reveals how energy moves, cycles turn, and how you can ride the current instead of resisting it. But that's another journey. For now, let this truth rest in you. You don't need to force yourself to shine. You only need to clear the glass. Your light is already burning behind it. No striving, just unveiling. No effort, just resonance. And from this place, everything flows.